Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of council, members of our staff, and those that are in the gallery tonight, and those that are watching via our YouTube channel. Welcome to our council chambers. This is a beautiful Monday, November 28th. We've had the opportunity to look on our main street. The tree is up. So the next couple of days, our staff will be decorating that and having that ready for the Christmas light up, which is December 1st. Festivities go from 7 to 9, and the light up is at 8:30, so that we can all get home at a decent time. So, with that, members of council, you have the agenda. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that Town Council adopt the November 28, 2022 regular council meeting agenda as presented.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Administration, anything to add?
Nothing at this time, Your Worship.
Thank you. Call the question. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Number 3 is the public input session. This is the time that we allow residents to talk to council about anything that's not on the current agenda. Administration, has anybody sent anything in?
Your Worship, no one's registered.
Okay. Seeing that nobody has registered, does anybody in the gallery like to speak to council on anything that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, move on with our agenda. Number 4 is presentations and delegations. We have nothing scheduled tonight. And there's also no statutory public hearings. So moving on to the adoption of council minutes. 6.1. Councillor Meyer.
Yes, thank you. The Town Council approved the November 14th, 2022 regular council meeting minutes as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Members of council, you had an opportunity to look through that. Any errors or omissions on those minutes? I didn't see any either, so I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, move on to number 7 is council boards and committee minutes. We do not have anything to accept tonight. So moving on to number 8, which is fees and charges. Go ahead, administration.
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe our manager of financial services will speak to this.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Included in the agenda package is the fees and charges bylaw for council consideration. The bylaw supports council's user fee philosophy that where possible, user fees cover particular program and service costs to the best of their ability. The fees and charges are reviewed annually by each department and adjustments made as necessary. The majority of the changes in the updated bylaw was minor cleanup, as well as updates based on the presented 2023 to 2025 corporate plan. We'll now ask council if there are any questions regarding the fees and charges bylaw.
Thank you for the presentation. So members of council, again, the fees and charges bylaw just comes out of what we approved for our corporate plan when we had those conversations about the corporate plan. That whole budget is designed around the fees and charges that our staff have reviewed and gone to other municipalities to check to see where they're at. So we'll make sure we're in line within the community. The only thing I wanted to make sure to note to members of council was the increase to the criminal checks. I think council made that comment and sent it over back to staff to make sure that it was adjusted, and that was adjusted. So members of council, any questions for clarity and understanding of the fees and charges bylaw? Councillor Loynes, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question under the development permits other. It has home occupation minor renovations, hot tubs, and demolishing added and removed in there, being removed as home occupation and minor. So does that mean where was minor renovations put, or is it just left as renovations?
Administration. And a page number to the reference.
42 of our 180 package.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Worship, to the council lines. I just want to pull this up, if you can give me a second.
Of course.
Your Worship, to the Councilor Loynes, that's on page 42, you said?
Yes. Development permits, other residential permit use, decks. We added accessory buildings, additions, home occupation. It says major, and then home occupation and minor were crossed out. Renovations, hot tubs was crossed out, and demolition was added. But there was no place further down or anywhere else where home occupation or minor were added. Same with hot tubs. So I'm curious what happens when somebody would like a permit for those.
Your worship, through the Council Loynes, with that particular request, it would probably fall to another category. At the time, I don't have the exact place where that particular question would fall to. I think in this case, it was just a case of cleaning up certain items that there are otherwise other categories that they could otherwise fall into, and those will be discussions with the planning staff about where they would best fit.
Okay. Through your worship to administration, would you be able to ask where it is located? I couldn't find it in the document, that's why I brought it up. Thank you. 44.
Oh, yeah, 24.
Okay. So it is on there, the hot tubs and just minor occupations. I think the question is, do we separate minor and major home occupations now, or renovations?
Your worship, that can be found on page 44 under miscellaneous for building permit fees and hot tubs and portable pools.
Pardon?
On page 44,
Page 44?
under miscellaneous.
So Council Loynes, it's page 44 under miscellaneous
Thank
for the
you.
hot tubs. But I think it goes back to the second question that Council Loynes asked, because in previous bylaw, it mentioned major and minor renovations. So are we just amalgamating them, just say as renovations, or are we still separating minor and major renovations? And if we are, what's the difference and where are they located?
Your worship, if I may, maybe we'll just take that under advisement and provide a more detailed question. So I think, though, what we'll take back as a question, was there some form of a policy change, and why is minor no longer showing up? And if there was a policy change or a process change or something, we can provide that. And if not, we can just provide that too, just to confirm.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Lowry?
Thank you, Your Worship. Not necessarily a question, more just an observation and maybe an administrative adjustment that's needed. Pages 16 and pages 19 talks about the rental rates for different facilities. And so, for instance, on page 16 in the arena fees, in off-season, it specifies, hourly and so on, and then there's a day rate on the concession. But then when you go to in-season, it doesn't talk anything about hourly. And so I'm presuming that those rates are hourly. Just thinking, if you look at other areas, sometimes it'll say, like where it says in-season ice, it'll say per hour, versus other areas, it'll be like the off-season dry floor where it'll be listed what that separation is after specifically. I do have two questions though in respect to the arenas. What is the difference between minor and junior and adult? Adult, I'm presuming, is any user group over 18. Minor typically is under 18. So where does junior fit into that category?
Go ahead.
Your worship, through to Councilor Lowry. So the junior would be the Junior B club that comes to Stony Plain. So they do have a combination of over 18 and under 18 typically on that particular team. So rather than just saying the majority are over 18 or the majority are under 18, there's a junior hockey rate related to it. I believe that's consistent with Spruce Grove also in terms of they do have two junior teams over there, 1A, 1B.
Okay, excellent. And that was actually going to be one of my next questions, if I may, Your Worship.
Go ahead.
We've been working together with the City of Spruce Grove for a while on regional ice allocations, alignment of fees, et cetera. Do our rates now align with the City of Spruce Grove for ice and the tri-leisure?
Your worship, through to Councilor Lowry, barring any changes to the City of Spruce Grove's corporate plan, when we put this schedule together, they certainly were aligned.
And with the tri-leisure as well?
Tri-leisure, yes.
Excellent. And so with that, how close are we to moving forward with the regional ice allocation next season?
Your worship, through the council, Lori, certainly that's a project that's requiring a bit more time. We do have some indications from some of our other partners that perhaps are not ready to continue moving forward with that due to staffing and those types of things. So certainly it's something that we're ready to continue moving that conversation. However, all three parties are not at the same level of participation at this point.
Excellent, thank you. And last and final, Your Worship. Go ahead. Thank you. Page 19 on the soccer and football fields. There's the Premier Field number 1 soccer, Premier Field number 1 football. I see the rates are different. It's 36 for soccer, 32 for football. This is one of the areas where it's not defined, though it does talk about day rates below, so I'm assuming this is hourly. Can you explain to me, number 1, which field or fields are the Premier Fields? Number 2, why there's a difference between football and soccer?
Your worship, through the council, Lori, so the Premier Field is the one that's encapsulated by the track. Football has power going to a clock, which typically soccer doesn't use. So my suggestion would be that that extra is for that power recapture that potentially would be used with their particular sport.
I could appreciate that, except for the fact that it's soccer that's more expensive.
Oh, sorry, you're right. I don't have a solid answer for you, Councillor Lori, so we'll take that one back.
Okay, thank you. I would presume that if it's the same field at the same location, that rate should be the same for either group, barring, as you said, there is an additional amenity that's used by one user group that might require an additional expense, so I would think that user group would then incur that additional expense, but I'm assuming that amendment or alignment can be made without this coming back to council?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's just administrative.
Your worship, I'll just get some clarity from across the room there.
Yeah, thanks. I'm a general manager into the mayor and council. So if I understand, we have a question that we don't have a solid answer for. So I think the first thing we would want to do is just find out exactly why specifically those numbers are different. Provide that to council, and from there, either bring it into council to have it, changed if that's the way it looks, or provide an update that way. Because that's what I'm thinking, Your Worship, for lack of a better way of saying it.
So it doesn't have to come back.
Okay, I don't think it needs to come back. I think because the hourly rentals and for the fields, the sports fields, are just based on guesstimates of what were previously rented. So having that $2 or $4 difference between a Premier Field for soccer and Premier Field for football is a $2 difference. Just an explanation, and if we can just make sure that they're aligned and there's some reason behind that, and an email sent to council is sufficient.
Yeah, Your Worship, certainly appreciate that. We would have to take a look at it. And I guess what I'm saying is, we want to make sure that the bylaw is aligning with what we're charging. And if there was a change that we felt was necessary for any specific reason, I think, we'd at the top end of that conversation, we'd want to make sure we're aligning with the bylaw itself. So, I think what we'd want to do is just take a look at this one in particular and see what could be required. So I guess I'll just stop there. If there's something that's significantly different, or we feel there's an error in either process, policy, numbers getting carried forward, or whatever, we'd want to make sure we have it as correct as possible, which include changes to a bylaw if necessary. So,
okay, Councilor Lowry.
Thank you, Your Worship. So if I'm understanding what the town manager is saying, I guess my question would be then, we have first, second, and third reading here before us tonight. Would we then move through first and second reading and not proceed with third and have that come back at an RCM before the end of the year for third reading?
Your Worship, I appreciate that question. And so what I would probably advise, or will advise, no, it would probably be preferable to do all three readings. I would expect these aren't rates that we would actually be charging out, frankly, until the active season for it. I would prefer that we would have all of them going forward. If a change is required for one reason or other, we could bring that in specifically as a one-off change, as opposed to lack of a better way of putting it, you mean delaying the rest of the process on the rest of the bylaw to whether it's December or, well, it would have to be December because we would have to have them in place before January 1. So.
Okay. That's fine, and I think council's privy here is not seeking to make that change, is seeking clarity and understanding. So why is there a price gap difference? So once that is provided to council, and I think what Councilor Lowy is asking about is why there's a price gap, and if you can explain it, if it's reasonable, that's all good. Councilor Lowy, is that?
Yeah, Your Worship, I would presume that there is an error there, just judging by what I'm familiar with in that. But yes, obviously, if there is a reason why that would be higher, or why there is that discrepancy in that way that then would not necessitate a change, then there would be no change required. So if what I'm hearing from the town manager, it sounds like the town manager is suggesting that we approve it as it is in order to move forward with all of the other aspects of it, and then we will receive some type of a report back, and therefore if action is required at that time, then a change would be requested of council?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm just going back to page 16 where Councilor Laurie asked about the off-season dry ice. It's definitely, it signifies it's an hourly fee, but the in-season ice doesn't state that it's hourly. So is that for the whole evening, 3-4 hours, or is it an hourly fee, or how do our residents know how that fee is charged out?
Your Worship, those rates are all hourly. So certainly from a editing perspective, perhaps we could either add the hourly to the in-season or remove the hourly from the off-season, because the rates are for an hourly unless otherwise specified.
Okay, thank you. And I think just some consistency would be good, because I know some has hourly and some says a day rate. So if we're going to go and operate by the fact that everything's hourly and unless noted, then that's very reasonable. Members, Council, any other questions for clear and understanding? Councilor Anderson, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just looking at page 39, kind of the bottom there, onto page 40. Excuse me. Just looking specifically at the children's summer programming under community programs and services being removed in the new version of the bylaw. I know that programs were paused with COVID, et cetera. Just looking for some commentary here. Is this a permanent change moving forward? We're not offering summer programs. Are they going to be captured in somewhere else?
Okay.
Just some thoughts there, please.
Yeah, good question. Go ahead.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Anderson, certainly through COVID, we did pause that particular program, and staff then were reallocated to other areas of our operations, and the demand for that particular program was on the low side, and we do have other partners in the region that do provide that programming, so there's an ability for the TLC and others, as an example, to take that programming. We have not received any calls from residents related to that decision.
Okay, thank you for that. Certainly, as COVID, is moving behind us and we're moving ahead, I've heard from some who look forward to return to programming. So, maybe something for council to discuss at strategic planning in terms of what summer programming looks like moving forward in a post-COVID world. Same page, scrolling down just a little bit more, under business license fees. I've had a number of conversations with residents, conversations with members of the chamber who've talked about some of the complexity in navigating different sort of license frameworks for the different municipalities and for the county. And some have kind of thrown out this idea of regional business licensing. And so I'm just wondering, looking at this, doesn't seem that there would be anything captured that way, but I'm just curious or looking for some commentary on discussion around regional business licensing.
Go ahead.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Anderson and the rest of Council. So with regards to our business licensing, there are no changes proposed for 2023. However, we are reviewing our policies and practices in 2023 around our business licensing, and we'll continue to dialogue with our regional partners as well and bring forward any proposed changes that collectively see fit to support business development and appropriate licensing at a regional level.
No, perfect, and that's what I was hoping to hear. I know there's an appetite for regional licensing in our area where, you know, we don't really have the borders that other municipalities might, and we have residents that freely move between our region. So I think that's a great direction for us to consider, so thank you for that. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And since you're on that page, so I'm just going to ask members of council to look at under concessions on page 30, page 40. I believe that's page. I've noticed a lot of fees change or they stay the same. Some have increased, but I'm just wondering the rationale to change the arena concession from $10.50 to $1,000 a month. And with the way utilities are and everything else is going up, I don't quite understand that logic when everything else has been increasing or stayed relatively flat.
Your worship, through to yourself, the arena concession at the moment is actually with a private contractor, not Minor Hockey. Minor Hockey provided us notification that they no longer wanted to run the concession, so we've been working with a private contractor for a contract for that food service operation at the arena to maintain that continuity.
And that's just the reflection of the contract that administration has been working with the private contractor.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you. Members of council, any other questions for clarity and understanding? Okay, see none. Councillor Hanson, motion for first reading, please.
Your worship, I move that town council give first reading to fees and charges bylaw 2668/G/22, a bylaw to establish fees and charges for the provision of certain licenses, goods, and services.
Okay, thank you. Members of council, any questions, comments, and debate on the motion for first reading? Okay. See none, call the question, all in favor? And that's carried. Councillor Loynes for second reading, please.
Town council give second reading to bylaw 2668/G/22.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, and debate on second reading? See none, I'll call the question, all in favor? That's carried. Okay, and to members of council and those that are in the gallery, if council is to deal with the bylaw and do all three readings, there has to be unanimous consent, so that is the next motion. Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the town council give unanimous consent to consider third reading of bylaw 2668/G/22.
Thank you. Call the question, all in favor? And that's carried. Deputy Mayor for third reading, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that town council give third reading to bylaw 2668/G/22.
Thank you. Any last comments, questions, debate? So on behalf of council, thank you, administration, for getting these updated and being in line with our regional partners. I think it's mentioned here before that our residents don't see borders, so the more aligned we are in terms of our user fees and charges, the better we are in terms of working together as the three municipalities to build the tri-region. With that, I'll call the question, all in favor? And that's carried. Okay, moving on to business items. Number 9 is on-demand local transit. Go ahead, administration.
Your worship, members of council, this evening we have Melanie Sampson, Recreation Services Manager, with us. She's one of her portfolios is transit, so she's been working very hard on the local transit service and the commuter that we currently have, and also that heavy lifting work that we're currently doing with EMTSC for that anticipated transition in July of 2023. As part of our transition into transit, as you're well aware, we jumped into the commuter service first, and then we launched into the local service in 2021. With that service, we have a fixed route, and we've been working with our local service provider. On-demand transit has become something that's quite prevalent in the region, and a lot of transit services are moving to because it provides some more benefits. So Ms. Sampson will take us through a bit of a presentation to talk about on-demand transit and some of the things that we would like to see in the community or the benefits it will provide the community, with an anticipation that we would be rolling this service out on January 1st, 2023.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present this evening on the proposed transition from our fixed route local transit to an on-demand transit service. I'd like to start just by highlighting what our current day looks like with our fixed route service. In May of 2021, the town launched our current local fixed route service in partnership with the City of Spruce Grove. The route primarily connects Stony Plain residents to the City of Spruce Grove transit service in order to connect to the ETS Spruce Grove commuter service into Edmonton, as well as to access services and amenities within the City of Spruce Grove. Just a highlight of our 565, which is our local current fixed route. It's primarily located north of our railway tracks here in Stony Plain, with two stops that drop just below the tracks to provide a closest access point to the downtown core. The route travels first westbound through Stony Plain before heading to the park and ride location at Heritage Park, and then returns eastbound before it heads back into the Spruce Grove area. It does travel a short loop through Spruce Grove, which provides two connection points to the Route 560, which is the commuter service into Edmonton. One of those occur on McLeod Avenue, just behind the Superstore, and the other one on the west side of Jennifer Heil, just south of the Tri-Leisure Centre. Just a note that transferring to that commuter Route 560 does cost an additional fee currently for Stony Plain transit users. So why are we talking about transitioning to on-demand? Throughout 2022, administration has kept a detailed record of calls, emails received regarding our current local transit service. As a result, trends and common themes were identified that helped shape the proposal from a transition from our fixed local route to a regional local demand system. Most common questions or themes that we heard were limited stop availability throughout town and a desire to increase stops that would include the downtown core and our south residential areas. Couple on limited to no access to many of our key services. Some of our key areas like the Downtown Business Association, the Family Resource Center or APFA, seniors residence and centers, and some communities within the North Business Park looking for access as well. A couple of concerns over the additional fee required to access or use the commuter route, so that's Route 560 or the Spruce Grove on-demand to access service within the City of Spruce Grove. And we did get a few calls from Edmonton residents who had some job opportunities in our area that were unable to take those opportunities as it was difficult to connect with all the different points and get into Stony Plain by 11 a.m. Or sorry, before 11 a.m. So 11 being the earliest they could arrive. We had a couple of concerns with people stranded at stops waiting between the break-in service that occurred between the morning, midday and afternoon services. Just one last week, actually. Someone was wondering why they were waiting so long. And we did actually have, interestingly enough, numerous callers specifically noting that the easier to use on-demand service in Spruce Grove would be a way to alleviate these concerns here in Stony Plain. Comparing the fixed route and our on-demand service, again, just to know what we've got, we currently have 8 westbound stops and 6 eastbound stops that head back into Spruce Grove. That is our primary connection point into the commuter service, but there is a 45-minute wait time between each stop each time the bus comes around, so not as much time in between. And again, there is that break between the morning, midday, and afternoon services. The proposal to shift to on-demand would move from those 14 total stops plus an park and ride to over 100 stops and a park and ride within Stony Plain. It would decrease our wait time to about 10 to 15 minutes, and because you're pre-booking, you have the ability to know when you need to be where versus waiting for a bus to come find you. There would no longer be a break in our service, so from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. would be continuous service. As long as you've pre-booked, you know exactly what you're going to get. And overall, there would be one large zone between the town of Stony Plain, the City of Spruce Grove, Parkland Village, and Atchison, which would add a total of 400 plus stops to access to our Stony Plain residents for an on-demand shared service for one fee. This will not change the commuter service. There will be an additional fee, as that is a contract between the City of Spruce Grove and the City of Edmonton. But it does provide additional access points, except instead of just those two within the City of Spruce Grove. For a visual representation of the current stops that we have with our fixed routes, so those are, I know it's kind of small and hard to see, but the blue pins that you can see on the left-hand map there, those are our current 14 plus 1 park and ride fixed route stops. The map on your right is the over 100 stops that would be added to the on-demand, which accesses far more of our community and includes the current infrastructure that we already had, which you can see is overlaid with those blue pins as well. So all the red pins on those maps indicate the new stops that we are proposing. There's some tweaks that would happen over the next few weeks, but generally that's the type of service expansion that we're anticipating. And as I mentioned in the last slide, this is just Stony Plain alone. So adding Spruce Groves and Parkland Village and Atchison would be 400 total stops access to our residents. Because this is a new way of doing business, I wanted to give you guys a quick overview of what booking a trip would look like on this system. This transition, of course, would move the town of Stony Plains transit booking into the currently operating City of Spruce Grove's on-demand system. So it's not a new system to many of the riders from Stony Plain that have been using it in Spruce Grove already. And we're getting a lot of feedback from our partners in Spruce Grove that it's been a very easy system to use and can be accessed in the following 3 ways. Primarily, users are downloading and utilizing the Pickup app. That's both Android and Apple capabilities. Some are using the online center, which looks identical. It's just browser-based versus app. And for those who don't have access to infrastructure like cell phones or web browsers, we do have a call center that people can access, or if they're not comfortable using it. And those dispatchers will do all that work for them. It's very simple. Once registered, users can select a starting location and a destination point, the time that they want to go, and where and when they want to go there. The system will do the rest of the work for them by identifying the closest stop to where they are trying to get to and where they're coming from, and the time that will best get them there that suits their needs. But users have the ability to look at a variety of stop options and ride options to book the one that best suits their timing. I know this is small and hard to see, but just a quick visual representation of how many quick steps it takes to book a ride. So first is entering the information, as I said. You're entering your pickup time, your drop-off time, how many people are in that ride, where you want to go specifically when, and you can even pre-book today, tomorrow, the next day, or up to a week in advance. Once you do that, you move on to step 2. That gives you, as I mentioned before, a variety of options. So the user, I've got 3 on the screen there, but I think in this specific booking, it gave me 7 different options that gave me different timings to get to where I wanted to go when I wanted to go there. Option 3, you're just looking at, yes, this is the ride I want, it meets the times, and you're clicking OK. And by step 4, you're confirming everything and paying, and you're on your way to your destination. Next steps from here, council approval, hopefully this evening, moves us into the December 1st public communications launch. We've been working really extensively with the town's communication department, as well as the City of Spruce Grove and Parkland County's communications department to launch an extensive communications campaign to ensure that all current users as well as potential future users are aware of the change in service. We are anticipating a January 3rd launch to on-demand regionally. That does include Parkland Village and Atchison as well. And just for information, we are expecting a July 1st transition over to EMTSC launch as well, and they would be taking over the on-demand at that point, and are aware of all of the conversations that have happened with our regional partners as it relates to on-demand. Just very briefly, as I've mentioned it, we did get some information from the EMTSC on the expected draft connection into the town of Stony Plain with the Metro West Rapid Express route, and that's donated by that purple line in the map on the right-hand side there. This route will follow a similar path to the current Spruce Grove and Edmonton commuter route with some minor changes, I think, in the downtown core in Edmonton. The only access point in Stony Plain will be at our current park and ride bus stop location at Heritage Park. And that will occur 4 times daily, 2 in the morning and 2 trips in the afternoon during peak hours only. After that, Stony Plain Transit users will be required to connect to the Metro West line within the city of Spruce Grove for the majority of the rest of their day. The on-demand system that we're proposing here will allow our users to have greater connection points to the Edmonton Metro West line when that service launches on July 1st. That is it for my presentation, and happy to answer whatever questions you may have.
Thank you for the presentation, and definitely looking forward to see your services enhanced. Members of council, questions for clarity and understanding? Councillor Meyer?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to administration. Just very quickly, with the new, will there be a new booking procedure July 1st, different than the on-demand one you just presented on July 1st when the EMTSC takes over the service, or will it be the same app?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Meyer, the indication we've had from the TSC at this point is they'd be transitioning our current contractual agreements with each municipality's contractor. So in our case, it would be Pacific West Transit to launch as we are doing it now, which would allow our users to have the same app and the same access day one.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Sorry, a couple of quick questions for clarification, and then maybe a couple of thoughts. What is the local fee currently? So rider gets on in Stony Plain, they want on-demand service to Spruce Grove. What is the fee there?
Thank you, Your Worship, to Councillor Anderson. Currently, our fee is $3 to get into Spruce Grove. It is $6.25 to access the commuter, even if you're just going around the city of Spruce Grove, or whether or not you're going into the city of Edmonton.
Perfect, thank you for that. And so to clarify then, a user in Stony Plain would pay the $3 to get connected to the Spruce Grove network, and then if they want to move on to Edmonton, it would be an additional $6.25 for a total cost of $9.25 for a one-way trip into the city. Is that?
Yes, and for clarification, once they get into the city of Edmonton or city of Spruce Grove now, it's actually one large zone. So it's $3 whether they're going to Atchison, within Stony Plain, Parkland Village. So it's one fixed fee to travel around the zone as a whole. It would continue to be the $6.25 if they're transferring into the commuter service into Edmonton. However, on November 21st, the Smart Fare, now known as ARC, launched in our region, which allows users to tap on and tap off for different stops along the way. And caps their fees for monthly users so that they're not paying as much. It's a bit of a discount per ride, depending on how often they're using it is the benefit to their discount.
Sure, and I appreciate that. I saw the release of the ARC card. I guess the question or the wonder that I have with this specifically is, there is that added cost for users in Stony Plain to connect and then to pay the commuter fee to go onto the city. Obviously, with the twice a day, they can go to Heritage Park. It's just $6.25 to get into the city. Now, I know in Edmonton, when I've taken transit there in the past, you pay your fare, you get a ticket that gives you a certain time limit to go anywhere within their network, within that given time limit. And so my wonder with this specifically is, if a user gets on in Stony Plain and they're connecting into Spruce Grove because we're not offering the commuter at that time, is there the capability to have them pay that $6.25 here in Stony Plain and not pay the additional $3 to get into the city?
Your Worship, through to Deputy Mayor Anderson, currently, no, that is not an option. They would require their $3 payment within Stony Plain and then the $6.25 to use the service within the city of Spruce Grove.
Okay, and then in Spruce Grove, though, they could pay the $6.25, get on at a number of different points to be able to go into the city. And so, when I look at $9.25, potentially, each way, we're looking nearly $20, for that commute into the city. And so, I don't know what it would look like to be able to honor a commuter fare as a local fee in Stony Plain that would allow them to get on that commuter bus in Spruce Grove when it's not currently being offered here. But I think that would go a long way in terms of increasing our ridership and reducing the cost, which is ultimately a goal for us as well on those families. So I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that looks like in terms of implementation using the app and those sorts of things. But, a $6.25 fee to get on a bus in Stony Plain at Heritage Park or at any other time if the Heritage Park commuter is not available, in my mind, would make sense for our residents. So.
Okay, I appreciate those, the question, Deputy Mayor. So currently, right now, there is no option for the $6.25 fee. If you're catching a bus in Stony Plain, you have to pay that $3 fee because we have a local transit that gets us to Spruce Grove, and then we just have to get on to the Spruce Grove Transit to get into Edmonton. When we become part of the Edmonton Metro Region Transit System, then there'll be actually a stop within town Stony Plain, which is the park and ride, and at that time, that individual from Stony Plain can get there, and then there's only one fee from them to get from Stony Plain to Edmonton. Go ahead. Councilor, you sit on the board?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And so just to provide some clarity to that, so that is one of the current challenges with the transit systems, the way they're set up today, that the EMTSC is working on eliminating. And so exactly what you pointed out is exactly what is being worked on to be eliminated when the EMTSC starts providing service at the beginning of July, so that you will be able to get on the bus in Stony Plain, whether it's on demand, whether it's straight onto the regional route, et cetera, and based on where you're going, how long of a trip it is, et cetera, there will be certain fees set for that. If you've taken a look at the ARC website, the ARC website actually gives you a really good breakdown. It'll show you, for instance, sorry, I'll just have the tab up here. So currently from Spruce Grove, if you're going Spruce Grove to Edmonton, it would cost you $5.60. If you're going from Spruce Grove to the airport, it would cost you $13.35. If you're going from Spruce Grove to St. Albert, it will cost you $9.80. If you're going Spruce Grove to Strathcona County, it would cost you $10.25. So the EMTSC will have something very similar to this, as to where, depending on your trip start and end location, there will be a fee based on that particular ride.
Okay, and I do appreciate that. I think when I look at the cost of nearly $20 for someone to commute into the city, I mean, that's a significant investment. And so any time that we can bring that down by streamlining the services or the, how the fare system works, I think is the right decision for our residents. So thank you for the clarification there.
Good. Thanks for bringing that forward, Deputy Mayor. Councilor Hanson?
Your Worship, just a comment. I'm glad to see this change because it really does open the transit up to many more people in Stony Plain in many more areas, which to me seems only fair. And I always think about what it costs for people who don't drive themselves to get anywhere. The costs are much higher in a cab, with Uber, sometimes even asking friends and neighbors to take you. People chip in for gas, and it's often maybe more even than it would cost. So I'm very pleased that administration has sat down and figured out how we can make this service available to more people in more neighborhoods in Stony Plain.
Councilor Laurie?
Thank you, Your Worship. Question through you to administration. So we've heard a little bit of conversation about the ARC card and that fare system. So when we move over to the on-demand system at the beginning of January, then will we now be a part of that ARC card system?
Through your worship to Councillor Laurie, we currently are part of the ARC system, and you can actually buy them right at our front counter here right now.
Just as a piece of feedback, it would be great to actually see that reflected on ARC's website, because it's not.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Laurie, we agree. Unfortunately, because we are hold an agreement with the City of Spruce Grove for our service provision, the City of Spruce Grove is listed as the partner, and we are working to have that rectified currently.
Excellent. Well, and with the addition of Parkland County into that partnership as well, I'd love to see that change from Spruce Grove to Tri-Region or some type of accommodation. I think that would be appropriate. Just to add a little bit of quick commentary, again, I think this is a fantastic initiative. I'm glad that we have gotten to this point as quickly as we have. As it said in the report, when Spruce Grove made this change, they saw a 400% increase in ridership in their first year. On-demand transit has shown in countless areas how effective it is, particularly for smaller populations in smaller areas. And so I'm very happy to see this in there. Question that I did have is, saw our net increase to add the service to the way that we're adding it, the increase, the hours that we're increasing, the projected net increase is only $9,000 across the entire year, which is fantastic. What would be our projected net increase if we were to add this service on Saturdays and Sundays?
Your worship, to Councillor Laurie, we have not looked at investigating at this time what the increase would cost to Saturdays and Sundays. At this time, we were aligning with the City of Spruce Grove's current status. I know that they are tracking diligently what they would call a failed search. So if someone's looking for a later evening or Saturday, Sunday, what is the percentage of people that are looking for that and can't have it? They do not believe that they've tipped the scale, so to say that there's a big enough ask, but it is something that we can continue to look at in the future.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I think that is something very important to keep our eyes on. As mentioned, given that we have regional recreation facilities, regional entertainment and employment opportunities, things like that, many of the people in our younger demographic of the workforce would be working on a Saturday and Sunday, and to be able to provide them a local transit option as a part of that would be a fantastic thing. So I look forward to seeing details on that coming forward after some time that this has been in place.
Thank you. Any more questions for clarity and understanding? See, and I just want to ask a question for clarity because I think a lot of people don't understand the concept of on-demand local. I think we mentioned that there's currently 14 stops within town Stony Plain right now. We're going to increase it to 125 stops. So does that mean the bus is going to stop at every 125 stops? Because if it is, then it's very inefficient. And then how do we save time? Because on the whole report it says we're going to save time and be more effective. So can administration provide a little detail of the difference between our current local system versus on-transit so that our residents can have a better understanding?
Great, thank you, Your Worship. That's a great question, and absolutely, we will not be having a bus go to every single stop following a fixed route, and that's the biggest change. What it does do is ask our users to pre-book in advance exactly where they want to be picked up, so the closest stop to them, and get to their closest stop wherever they want to go. If you wait at a stop and you haven't booked, you won't get a ride. So the biggest change is that you do have to do a little bit of legwork at the beginning to get yourself a secured ride, and once you do that, you have access to all 400 stops across the region.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Meyer.
Your Worship, through you to administration. As pointed out by my fellow councillor Laurie, other regions saw a 400% increase in their ridership. I'm just curious, I forget the exact number we project, but it's much more modest. I'm just curious if administration can speak to why we have a more modest number and what it would look like for this new service to break even. How much percentage increase that would be?
Go ahead.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Meyer, certainly there were some projections from the service provider. We did look at those, and I think their projections were a lot more modest than our projections. And seeing the success that the City of Spruce Grove had, it definitely encouraged us to increase our modesty on that projection. We do believe that we might exceed that 60% projection. However, City of Spruce Grove had transit for some time before they launched the on-demand. We're a little bit less mature in our transit operating than the City of Spruce Grove was when they launched their on-demand system. So we're being a bit conservative with a realistic thought in the back of our head that perhaps that 60% would be a little bit higher than what we're projecting. And once the service starts in January, I think the first quarter will provide us some fairly decent metrics as to how well the service will be received by the community and what the ridership looks like, and that likely will be able to provide us some more ability to give you more information when we come through our quarterly reports that we come to council 4 times a year on. So certainly we're anticipating some change to our projections, and certainly that will probably be reflected in our quarterly reports as we move forward. To break even, we just need to come up with $9,000 more in revenue, which really is not a lot of money when you're talking about transit. As an example, our projection right now is 105 for the local service. So we're projecting another 60, so about 72, sorry. 91,000 is what we're looking at for a break even.
Thank you.
Any more quick questions for clarity and understanding? See none. Councillor Meyer for motion.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council approve a service delivery shift to on-demand transit effective January 3rd, 2023.
Thank you. Members of council, any questions, comments, and debate on the motion? Okay. Seeing none, thank you, administration, for bringing this forward and the service level change. I think it's the next step in terms of Stony Plain growing up and maturing as a community. Last, I think, year and a half ago, we added transit, which we saw the ridership continue to increase. However, that was slowed with the COVID-19 pandemic. And now we're going to see some of the on-demand, which will then change the service level that we're providing. So definitely a lot more stops. I appreciate that explanation of having 125 stops within Stony Plain versus only 14, which does, as Councillor Hanser mentioned earlier, allows more of our residents to have access to transit in the community. You can call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, move on to 9.2, and this is just the corporate plan update for us to approve. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll be brief. So just a quick summary. You'll see a lengthy motion in front of you that includes the numbers and amortizations and so on. That's a standard writing for that particular motion at this point in time. In front of you, Your Worship and rest of council, is the corporate plan for adoption. I think there was a handful of changes that council directed through November 7th and November 8th. Those have been incorporated. The numbers have been changed where necessary. There was a couple other document changes as a result of the direction of council that have been made as well, Your Worship. And I believe I'll stop there. That's the quick update and summary. Certainly can answer any questions as to the document itself, Your Worship.
Okay. Thank you, administration, for making those changes that council provided direction on November 7th and 8th. It's nice to see the quick turnaround and making sure that the numbers are updated to reflect council's vision and direction. Members of council, any questions for clarity and understanding on the corporate plan? Okay, see none. Councilor Loyens for the motion, please.
Town Council approved the 2023-2025 corporate plan, including the total operating revenue and expense and unfunded in the amounts of $7,427,468 for 2023 to the capital budget of $37,744,230, including, wow, oh, that's the numbers today. 6.378500 in contributed tangible capital assets of 2023. 3 transfers of reserves to transfers from reserve. Transfer to reserves of $6,186,336 and transfers from reserves of $7,132,116, and 4, accept the principal of the items identified within the plan for 2024 and 2025.
Thank you for the motion, Councilor Loyens. Members of council, the floor is open. Questions, comments, and debate on the motion. Okay. Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we said this on the 8th when we kind of wrap things up, but just wanted to reiterate it again today, our appreciation for administration and all the work that goes into, this. We see the nice package that comes into chambers, but we also know that that's not where it starts. So thank you again for everything you do to pull this together for us, and we look forward to restarting the process in January. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Any comments? Okay. Seeing none, before I call the question again, thank you, administration, for bringing this forward, and members of council for your diligence in reading the corporate plan and bringing your best suggestions forward on our corporate plan dates of November 7th and 8th. And definitely love the way that was presented. Members of our community don't realize how much work goes into leading the community in terms of where we start off in terms of our municipal development plan, and then to our smaller plans, and to have then to our yearly strat planning to make sure that we're in line with what our residents see for our community. And we continue to navigate the waters that we may face in terms of the economy, in terms of socioeconomic factors, and in terms of just what's happening within our tri-region and regionally within Edmonton. Sometimes council has to make those adjustments because things do change. But there is a process that we keep fairly close to, and the end goal is our municipal development plan, our 25 vision for our community, of what we look like in the next 25 years. Currently, we're at 18,000. With the next short to 10 to 15 years, we'll be at 30,000. And what does that mean for Stony Plain? So our municipal development plan, our corporate plan, are those directions, are those points that we can tick off in terms of our community saying, tick, we did this, we did this. Earlier, we approved the on-demand transit. That's another check in the box. As we continue to grow, we want to make sure that our community is livable for as many people as possible. Transit is vital, and we just approved that as a council. And so we'll continue to grow, and we'll continue to make our community more livable for everyone. And last of all, I'd like to thank our residents. Thank you for continuing to engage with members of council. This is still a small community, so whenever you see us in the grocery stores getting gas or just out and about at our community events, come say hi and just share with us what you like about the town, what you don't like about the town. And it's okay if you don't agree with members of council, if it's okay that if we don't agree with you. That's what makes us very, very unique in terms of community. We have the ability to share our thoughts, and we have the ability to trust our leaders amongst council to provide that leadership and direction for our residents moving forward. So thank you to our residents to continue to engage with us and let us know how you feel and what you see for our community. Okay, with that, thank you, Councilor Loyens, for the motion. I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Move on to 9.3 is new membership for the Capital Region Assessment Services. Go ahead, Administration.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. The Town of Stony Plain is a member of the Capital Region Assessment Services Commission, known as CRASC. The board has been approached with a request from the Summer Village of Sunset Point to become a member of the Capital Region Assessment Service Commission commencing 2023. The request to join must be sent to CRASC members for council resolution. Conditions of joining would be that the contractor assessor has capacity to provide the assessment services of which the board has already confirmed there is capacity to take on this, Summer Village. The motion before you is supported by administration as there is no impact on the town of Stony Plain by approving this request. At the time of preparing the RFD, 8 member municipalities had provided an approved motion. In order for this to be successful, 16 municipalities must vote in favor. That is all the information that I have for today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Administration, for that. Just a point of clarification on the backgrounder. Councilor Loyens is not the council appointee. It is Councilor Meyer, and that was adopted on October 24th through the organization meeting. Okay. So, Councilor Meyer, that is your name supposed to be in there. We apologize. Hey, members of council, any questions for clarity and understanding? See none? Actually, I do have a question just in terms of this motion going forward, and I don't see an issue with it. But moving forward in terms of assessment services for a region, I believe City Spruce Grove is also a member of the Capital Region Assessment Services, but Parkland County is not. So is there an opportunity to have those conversations with our regional neighbors to maybe create our own assessment services?
Thank you for the question, Your Worship. So assessment services has been a conversation at a regional level from, I would say, time to time. It has come up. There has been some dialogue. Yes, correct. Parkland County, I don't know how many assessors they employ, but they do carry out this work on their own. So I'll just be brief. Yes, we have had those conversations in the past. To date, obviously, they have not led to anything specifically being undertaken. And I'll stop there, but I'll certainly turn it over to our corporate services general manager and our manager beside me if there's anything further they wish to add to that question. So.
Your Worship, the only thing that we would add is that, that there's certainly dialogue at the administrative level with regards to these services, and if there was ever an opportunity or the business case for it provided the right fit for all the regional partners, it would certainly be something that administration would bring forward.
Okay. Thank you, and I appreciate that, because I think between the three municipalities, we've got close to 40 in Spruce Grove, 18 in Stony Plain, and probably about 35 in Parkland County. So if I don't know what that point is where it makes it viable to have your own assessment services, but definitely I'm glad to hear that administration is looking at that and having those conversations with our regional partners. Okay. Councilor Laurie with the motion, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that Town Council approve the Summer Village of Sunset Point to become a member of the Capital Region Assessment Commission commencing 2023.
Thank you. Members of Council, any questions and comments and debate on the motion? See none, call the question. All in favor? That is carried. And moving on to council discussion. And this is the time that members of council can update our administrative staff or just provide some clarity or input for members of council about some things that are happening within our region. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just highlight the opportunity to join my fellow councillors this weekend at the Living Waters annual dinner and fundraiser. The money goes to help fund, I believe, senior students' overseas mission, as well as deserving families in need of some help for tuition. And it was a nice evening with my fellow councillors and a worthy cause. So happy to share that with the council.
Thank you for the update, Councillor Meyer, and I appreciate you attending and representing the town as well with fellow councillors. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was actually at my alma mater, and so it was nice to be back in the school there and see the work that has gone on and how much the school has grown since I was a student there. So it was a great time. Really briefly, just a question, not even a question actually, just maybe looking for some commentary from administration related to the pilot project going on in St. Andrews and Meridian related to the transition of waste bins from the back alleyway into the front. I know there's been lots of discussion since that's been made public on the town social media, and it would just be, I think, informative for the community to kind of have a little bit of commentary on that decision and what the hope is of making that transition.
Okay, thank you for bringing that forward, Deputy Mayor. And there's also Old Town as well, everything south of the tracks and west of 48th Street. That's also included in the Meridian Heights and St. Andrews pilot project.
Thank you for that.
I'll appreciate the question, and I can maybe provide some commentary, Your Worship, and the rest of council, and then I believe our general manager can probably fill in some of the blanks, or may have some of his own comments to share too on that particular. So, Your Worship, I think I've had some of my own conversations with residents over the last couple of weeks, and I think one thing I would like to make clear both to council and to the community at this, given the opportunity here, we are looking at this as a pilot project in that we're interested to find out if what we believe, some of the things that we believe we can achieve by the extended times, if in fact those are true, and then frankly to weigh those with community impact and resident impact. And I think the dialogues that I've had with some of our residents, I've frankly made clear that we are of that mindset on this particular project. And anytime we use a pilot project term, it is essentially we're testing a theory. We feel like there's something that we may be able to achieve. In this case, I believe, mostly to lower or preserve the structures in our back alleys. One way I'm sure the general manager could speak a little more clearly to that. But if the theory of extending the front street pickup, if that holds true, then we would be here to speak to council about that. And if at the end of the pilot project we're not necessarily satisfied with that, we may just call it that and just leave it at that. So, Your Worship, those are some of the broader thought comments I have on this one. And certainly, I'm going to just ask our General Manager if they want to continue to add to that. Or
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, General Manager.
Pardon me. Through Your Worship, the rest of council, and thank you to the town manager for the opportunity to comment on this. As the town manager emphasized, this is a pilot project, and further to his comments about we're trying things here. It's a combination of factors. So as mentioned through the town manager's comments, there are infrastructure considerations. These trucks can, the waste trucks have been observed in some of our older back lanes. They can cause damage in these spring thaws, or these winter seasons where the temperatures may be varying around that freezing and not freezing mark. There are other operational considerations that get brought forward from our contractor that does the service. We do keep a good discussions with them about how to make the service better for the town residents. So something I wanted to emphasize with the pilot part of this is we're taking feedback that we do hear from residents that are in this pilot, and we are also taking feedback from the contractor as they do it as well. At its core, this is intended to help us understand how to best deliver this service for those areas where we've observed issues with damage to the back alleys or further deterioration, that if there's a way for us to slow it down or make that area last longer or deliver this service better, we want to explore those things and make sure that we're being mindful of the service that the residents expect from the town and its contractors, as well as making sure that we've explored all options. So to emphasize again, this is a pilot. We're gathering all the feedback that we get from everybody that provides it to us, to make sure that if we're going to make this a push forward, that we're making it meaningfully and dutifully to the residents and the town.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I just have a couple of points of clarity based on the conversation that's been had. Just to confirm, residents will not see a reduction in service in terms of the clearing of those back laneways. That will happen similar to the way that it has in the past. Is that correct?
Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, thank you for that. Secondly, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the town manager, I believe if I heard you correctly, if this is to be a more permanent change, that will come back into chambers and there'll be a conversation about that based on how the pilot project runs. Is that fair?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you for that. And then finally, on this topic, we've talked about different avenues of residents communicating with town staff. And just for clarification purposes, I know as members of council, I think we've all taken calls on this. What is the best form that we can offer to residents for feedback? Is it through report of concern? Is it through the town administration website? What would be the best way for residents to communicate their thoughts on this particular project?
Through Your Worship, to Deputy Mayor, contacting our Public Works directly, they can use the report form on that and just highlight that this is feedback for the pilot project if they wish. There are some phone numbers and emails on the website that they could also use, but if it's for simplicity, if they want to use the report form, they can access that and just highlight that this is feedback for that program.
Sure. Thank you for that. And just one final thought there. Lots of great information coming forward today, clarity on some of the reasoning and intent behind the project, how it may or may not continue. Are the Public Works staff who answer the phones, do they have that same information? Because the second piece of frustration that I've heard regarding this has just kind of been a little bit of mixed messaging and inconsistent messaging that's been received.
Your Worship, I'll maybe make a few comments on that one, and then certainly the General Manager can supplement or what have you. But I'm going to make a clear comment on some of that, because I've heard that myself, Your Worship, from some of the residents I've spoken with, and I have spoken with not a ton, I would say maybe half a dozen. And I think, Your Worship, with respect to the calls and questions that we receive, I think there is a distinct difference between an individual making one call and trying to get some answers or understanding. But the ones that usually make it to my desk are frankly, Your Worship, and with all due respect, are answer shopping. And that's a different thing altogether. To expect that 5 or 4 or 3 different people are going to provide the exact same answer to the exact same question, I think is I would say being challenging. And Your Worship, I will also kind of note that some of the calls that I've taken, some of the residents I've spoken with have been one way to put it, absolute pleasure conversations. Some, I have myself had to back down on allegations and, talking about being lied to and so on. And Your Worship, I will say that I do push back on those. So I think there's always a notion where we need to be clear, we need to have the list of key messages, so to speak, and to be able to provide those across the board. And I think for the most part, we do a pretty good job at that, but we can always be better. But I also think there are a handful of cases where the individuals they're looking for discrepancy in answer, and then bringing it up. I probably hear similar conversations as some of council does by the time, when it does make it onto my inbox or my voicemail. And I try to do it respectfully, but I do point out that, if you want to have a conversation about this, great. If you want to level accusations, we're simply not going to put up with that. So, Your Worship, I do go back if the general manager wants to add anything further about the messaging or the comment, the original question. So.
Sorry, and Town Manager, sorry, just for my clarification as well, but the key messages is what I was looking for. And, to know that they have those key messages, I'm more than satisfied to hear that. I think the reasoning for the question was, and I believe I passed this on, but at what point, the reasoning I had heard was the gentleman's no longer here, and so this was a decision somebody else made, which probably was not the correct message to share. And so just knowing that everybody has those key messages is the big takeaway, and that's all I was looking for this evening. So thank you for that. On a lighter note, it is Light Up event kickoff of our Advent celebrations for the holidays on Thursday, and so 7 to 9 downtown. I know the tree went up today, and love to see as many residents there as possible, but dress warm. I heard some very cold temperatures in the store, so, and that's it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just tag on to Deputy Mayor Anderson's about the light up. Again, yeah, I hope to see people downtown. I know it's going to be a little chillier, and it's a few days later this season than we've done it in years past, but hopefully we still get a great turnout for that. But a reminder as well, the Christmas hamper program is in full swing. The Christmas hamper program runs before Christmas, and sometimes I find that if people aren't quite in that mentality, of the season at that point in time, that they maybe aren't thinking about that. But the reality is there's at least a good week before Christmas Day that those hampers actually have to be put together. So if you are interested in donating to the hamper program, now is the time, and they could definitely use it as the need in our area only continues to increase. Only other thing that I have to mention, and I appreciate the information that's already been passed along to us in regards to coyotes in the town of Stony Plain. Wildlife is a reality, no matter what municipality you live in, whether it's a big municipality, a small municipality, an urban municipality, or a rural municipality. And there's only so much that can be done about it. So I just encourage residents to look at the resources that we have on our website, the resources that exist out there from Alberta Environment and Wildlife and so have you. So, and then exercise caution. There's certain times of years where they are definitely more active, and there's more of a, danger, if you want to call it that. And so just encouraging everybody to take the appropriate steps, because the more we do to eliminate the problem, the less opportunities that wildlife has within the municipality, the less likely those incidents are to occur. So.
Thank you, Councilor Laurie. Councilor Loyens.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to tag on to my fellow counselor in regards to coyotes, I know particularly in Greybrier, they have become a very huge nuisance and are actually digging under people's fences. And I was wondering if admin can shed some light as to what all residents can do in order to protect what they have within their own fenced yards. There's been several conversations that I won't repeat out loud as to how people want to deal with them, but can admin just tell us exactly what they would like to see residents do besides take it into their own hands?
Yeah. Thank you. I'm looking for administration, but I think the first thing is to call the Alberta Fish and Game. I think they're the proper agencies to deal with the coyotes. And any other suggestions?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Loyne and all of Council. It certainly is a challenging topic. We do border treat areas, and Parkland County surrounds us. Certainly when construction happens on our outskirts, pipelines start to get developed and they get cleared out, and that's a really nice route for animals to walk along unobstructed through, a large corridor, basically, is what they're creating with the pipeline. So I'm not suggesting the pipeline is bringing them in, but certainly we do have our challenges. I think like most, when we go camping in the mountains, we're asked to take all of our food goods and our garbage and those types of things and make sure they're stored in a secure area. I think when you're dealing with animals of this nature, often they're predatory and they're looking for something to sustain themselves. And if those things are around your yard, perhaps that's what's attracting them. I don't know for every circumstance. Fish and Wildlife, certainly, they do have limited resources also. And the number of calls that Stony Plain's getting certainly is probably equal in other communities that have, some of the same natural environment around their communities. So very difficult for those members to be out and dealing with absolutely every complaint. Certainly there are certain things that they will, if a coyote is in distress, they will respond fairly quickly. If there's a danger, then they will respond very quickly to those calls to service. Our CPO team is not equipped to deal with these types of animals. We have tools that we can utilize, but certainly they're not really meant for wild coyotes and those types of things. So I think when you're out walking your dogs, make sure they're on a leash, and they have to be on a leash under our bylaw unless you're at the off-leash park. So that certainly will help you, protect your animals when they're out. Times of day certainly are another factors. With coyotes, certainly they do come throughout different times of the day. I can't say to you for sure, don't go out after 6 o'clock, because often you can see them around at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I think it's one of those ones where you just have to be mindful of, if you're on the outskirts of Stony Plain, there's a likelihood that you might see a moose, a deer, some coyotes. I've seen a fox over at the ice cream shop when I'm coming home from hockey at 2 o'clock in the morning. So there's a lot of animals walking around our community for sure. And I think you can take those garbage and food scraps away and keep your animals. I maybe clean up after your animals also, because they might be smelling some of the things that often get dropped in the backyard when dogs go out after a long night. So I think those types of things that can certainly keep people and if they're digging under the fence, perhaps provide us a phone call to say that this is, occurring more often. We continue to talk with Fish and Game about some of the things that we're having here, and perhaps if our list is longer and it's very local to a specific part of our community, we might have more of an ability to get that service back out to Stony Plain to assist us in a greater level.
Thank you. Three more things, sorry, Your Worship. I wanted to say thank you to the General Manager for Planning and Infrastructure. I noticed on Saturday the sanding trucks were all out, and I noticed, if not all of town, majority of town did get sanded on Saturday, so thank you. I wanted to mention that SML Academy is having their 15th annual Christmas Craft and Bake Sale on December 3rd from 10 to 3, then that's just down the street from here. It's a nice big sale, and it's always great to see all the residents from town go to it. As well as, Mr. Mayor, I want to say congratulations to you for your Queen Elizabeth II Platinum Jubilee Medal that you received over the weekend.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Loyens. Councilor Hansard?
Well, now that Councilor Loyens has flattered the fiddle out of you, I don't have a lot to say. Mr. Mayor, I'm looking forward to Christmas light up. It's odd to call it Town Square when it's really the town circle by the big Christmas tree. Also, I've had my own encounter with a big coyote. It wasn't bad. I mean, he left us alone, but it was scary. And I continue to take calls from residents concerned about the front garbage pickup and not wanting it. I would say that's the bottom line. Only one person was a bit angry, but calmed down before the end of the conversation. So people just want to feel that they've had an opportunity to speak their viewpoint and that decisions aren't made without caring or seeming to care what they think. And it's been a busy several weeks, and I think we're not finished yet because we go into Christmas season. So thank you to everybody for the budget process, which was lovely to see that go through this evening.
Thank you, Councilor Hansard. We're just again, I think we all mentioned Christmas light up. Again, there's a change in terms of when Santa photos are with the family and the children. Usually we do it after the Christmas tree light up. This year we're doing it prior to the Christmas tree light up. Usually, so photos with Santa is from 7 to 8:15, and then the tree light up at 8:30, then everybody can go home. Versus in the past, we usually have the tree light up at 8 o'clock, and then we had pictures with Santa after, which was made it for a very long evening for certain smaller individuals. So hopefully that change helps the families to be involved more and to get home on a reasonable time. One last question for administration. In terms of the Christmas season that's upon us, we're getting the lights, we're getting the wreaths, we're getting the tree opening up pretty soon. In terms of the banners on Veterans Boulevard and Golf Course Road, I believe that we do have banners that have Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas, etc. When do we start seeing those get turned over?
Pardon me, Your Worship, I was making some notes from the previous, could you please repeat the question?
Sure. Usually we have holiday greetings or Merry Christmas, some more Christmas festive banners that usually go on Golf Course Road. And I'm not too sure if we have any in Veterans because that was a newer road that we just built a few years ago. I'm just wondering when that program starts and we start changing those banners over for this festive season.
Your Worship, I'll have to circle back with you on that answer.
Okay. Okay, if you can just send an email update, please. Okay, with that, thank you, administration, for providing the package for us and members of council for reading it. We are adjourned today. Thank you.